I've been trained as a journalist since I was in junior high. It wasn't until I started writing fiction and learning the craft of storytelling that I was able to really connect with others. There's just something about story. And facts and statistics just don't have the same power. It's when you touch the heart. You can give facts about something, but it's when it reaches the heart that there's really true transformation. And isn't that one of the reasons that we write? To connect ideas and truths and experiences and struggles so that we can share that to bless other people. At least that's why I write. And that's why we do it through story. Elise told a story, and if she would have just told facts and statistics about coyotes, and it wouldn't have the same impact, So that's what I want to do today, so thank you for allowing me to do that. Over the last couple of years, I've noticed two types of people that have been through, 2020, 2021. And they come into two different categories, and there might be more, but these are the ones that stood out to me, maybe because God wanted me to notice these things. One was the ones that allowed their circumstances to dictate their mood, their attitudes, and their habits. How many of you know people that just let what was going on in the world really bring them down? Or those that seized the unique opportunity to enrich their lives and better themselves despite their circumstances. You might fall into one or two of these categories. Did you allow your circumstances, the shutdown, the isolation, to dictate your mood, your attitude, and habits? Bad habits? Did your bad habits grow? Did you develop new bad habits? I know I did. Or did you seize the unique opportunity to enrich your life and better yourself despite your circumstances? Now, is anyone brave enough who wants to share and answer those questions? You want to?
Well, one thing I did was decide that if I was going to be stuck at home, I'd just do talk space as a counselor.
Mm-hmm.
And so God carried me through. I really didn't have issues. I didn't like being at home.
Right.
But on the other hand, I was still able to reach people, and I'm a people person.
Yeah. So that's that you took something that wasn't good and you made it positive. You didn't, right. Woe is me, I can't be with people. You just saw an opportunity and you made it work. Yeah. Anybody else?
I thought of one thing when you said this, that it's really silly that, it's one of those things. I thought, if I'm going to be stuck at home, this was, back when everything started, I'm going to have frosted sugar cookies from Walmart. So I did, and I don't like eat a bunch of them. I'm one of these people that take a bite off, and then later in the day, I'll take another, bite off. I probably don't even eat a whole cookie every day. But, and the worst of all, this is past, but I'm still getting those frosted sugar cookies.
All right.
I know that's silly.
For me, I think it had to do with kind of an interior assessment of disposition and reflecting, kind of recognizing here's a chance, uninvited, but a chance to assess, how am I perceiving whatever it is that's going on at any given time, and how am I responding to that, and how would it be good for me to consider better ways of responding that I ordinarily would in the past.
Yeah, great. And whether we realize it or not, it was all a choice, the way we reacted. Some people just reacted more than, thought about it and put some thought into it. Anyone else?
I was never really affected by it. Well, for one thing, because I'm writing for a community newspaper, we had to keep going, although we had a lot of delays caused by the pandemic. But I also, it allowed me time to reflect, and I kind of came to a place where it was time to begin a transition from writing about sports, even though I'm still doing it somewhat, to write more about Christian issues that are going on in our culture right now. and how it's affecting the culture and the church. And of course, I later on had the misfortunes of getting the virus, both my parents and I, and of course, while my mother and I recovered, my father wasn't as fortunate. But that's what I
Right.
got out of it.
And you think if you hadn't have had that time, would you have made that switch? Would you have even seen that opportunity to go towards the new issues, like the writing aspect of it? Would you have made that, or would you still be doing the same thing, you think?
I think eventually I was already leaning in that direction, had been for a long time. It just the shutdowns, along with all of the a lot of the other crazy, like the riots and stuff, really kind of pushed me further
Right.
into making the change.
Good. Well, so far I've heard most everyone sees the opportunity. Anyone didn't seize the opportunity? Well, for me, in 2020, I seized the opportunity. Well, I was teaching homeschool co-ops, teaching writing to students, 3 different homeschool co-ops, and I was exhausted just lugging materials to 3 different locations because I had 3 different classrooms, and it was exhausting. And I was like, God, I can't keep doing this. I got to find a way out, but I could not find a way out. And then the shutdown happened, and I didn't have a job at all. And this was, I guess, 2020, and I had been divorced since 2016, starting my life over, working odd jobs, $8 an hour, $10 an hour, $13.50 an hour, and getting close to, $25 an hour. But, when you spend so many hours working outside the classroom, it's not $25 an hour anymore. Plus, I was writing about 5 magazine articles a month for Preview 918, which was great. So me teaching kids how to write really improved my writing. But then I got all these articles, and I was spending more time writing, and this was before the shutdown. So I knew that couldn't go on forever either. And then 2020, when everything shut down in March, I started getting these emails from an online company called OutSchool that I had tried to teach before, but I could never fill up a class. I had 2 classes on there. One was Release the Novel in You, and one was a Paint with Your Words descriptive writing class, but they never filled up. And every time this email came in, I was like, no, I already, that didn't work. I've tried it so many times, I'm not gonna do it, no. So I was resisting that, and then it just kept coming to me, and I was like, well, let me just try it. So I scheduled classes, and they filled up in 2 days. Then I scheduled more classes, and those filled up with 15 students, and that's the way the whole 2020 went. So if I had not seized that opportunity and did something that scared me, because I didn't know what I was doing. It was when Zoom first came out, and I remember kids hijacking my screen and writing on the board and learning as I go and chatting to each other, and that was just the technology. But then I had to figure out, I was just teaching with a worksheet, and the kids, I knew I needed to engage the kids. Then I had to learn PowerPoint, and then I had to develop new classes. So I spent my whole 2020 working, involved in that. So I didn't really feel much of it, and I doubled my income. So that was pretty awesome. And doubling my income gave me the opportunity for the following year, and I'll get to that story a little bit, just to take it a little more easy, because everything went back to normal in 2021 as far as online teaching. But it also gave me the financial freedom to be there for my mom, who's currently dealing with the beginning stages of dementia. So if I had not taken that opportunity, I would not have gotten my financial miracle, because it really was. I needed a financial miracle in May, and I got it in March. Oh. So all because I stepped out of my comfort zone, and I did something I didn't want to do. And I'm still reaping the benefits till today. However, on the other side, I was still stuck in unhealthy habits of using food to fill emotional and social voids in my life. You know, I didn't just take a little piece of the cookie. You know, I did really well eating all day long, but when it came nighttime, I live alone, maybe with my kids, but you know, teenagers never see them. They don't want to be with you until they're like in their 20s, so that's cool. But, you know, so what did I fill my comfort with? It was Netflix and food and drink. And then it's like another Netflix show. Okay, my snack is empty. I got to get some more snacks. I got to get another drink. And it was just that vicious cycle, even though I did really well during the day. And I was tired and exhausted all the time and wasn't physically and emotionally able to be with my mom, which was really stressful as well because she was living by herself and she couldn't see and she couldn't get out and she was isolated. And it was just a super stressful time, and on top of all that, I wasn't feeding my body what it needed to handle the stress. And I was impatient and short-tempered, and my behavior with my mom only added to the stress even more. So that was the negative side of, you know, not giving up the things that I was holding on to. And ultimately, I wasn't writing or using my gifts that God has given me. Since I was 8.5 years old, I always show the kids in my classroom. I have a diary entry, and it says in my little 8.5-year-old handwriting and drawings, when I grow up, I want to be a writer, a dancer, and an acrobat. And I'm actually 2 out of the 3. So I'm not going to do a cartwheel, but no. So I started writing when I was 8.5, and I started dancing when I was in my 40s. And so I use that as, you know, it doesn't matter what your dreams are when you're 8.5 years old or whether you reach them when you're 40. Some people just know what they want to do. And I've always known I've wanted to write. It's the way I communicate with God, it's the way He communicates with me, and it's my self-expression. So, but I haven't been using that gift over the last, 30 years. I've written half novels, and like I said, some of the people I started with have 40 novels, and I have 4, maybe. I don't even know. But part of it was the exhaustion. Writers need to find time if you're not retired, or even if you are retired. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I was working my day jobs, and then had to come home. And who wants to write? I was exhausted. I didn't want to get up early. I didn't want to stay up late. I was flat on the couch at 3 in the afternoon, but I had to write my 5 articles. It was just a never-ending cycle. My brain was useless. Have you ever felt that when you want to write, but you just can't even form the words? That's how I was like with this talk a couple of nights ago, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to put it aside. Because I remember writing articles and spending hours and hours and hours trying to write these articles when I was exhausted, when if I had just gotten a good night's sleep, it would have taken me an hour to get it all done. So these are the things that I've been learning. Sleep is super important, so is nutrition and health. So it was impossible for me to think clearly. And to be honest, this all happened, this happened before COVID, and I've been living like this for decades. And I didn't have any of the answers to get out of this vicious cycle. Never really learned good nutrition, was always, yo-yo dieting, 20 pounds gained, 20 pounds lost, back and forth. Even when I was maintaining good health, I wasn't maintaining a good diet. I was just keeping the weight off by dancing, but I was still exhausted. So I really didn't have an answer to how to get out of this how to get energy. That's really what I was looking for, and maybe to drop 12 pounds, until I met my coach. And remember how I said sometimes what we think is the message God wants us to get out in the world has nothing to do with what we're writing, and everything to do with what He wants to do in us and through us. Well, this is where God threw in a plot twist to everything in my life. In 2019, I was assigned to do a story on Julie Brothers, who I brought with me today, because she had an amazing weight loss story, losing 82 pounds, and I'll let her, share her little story in a moment. But my assignment was to get her story, and I love to just learn about people. That's the best part of writing about people, is you want to find out their story. But a lot of the times, you see yourself in their story. Whether I'm interviewing a Broadway star and I'm like asking questions because my kids are into theater And I'm really asking questions that I'm interested in. So that's what was happening with Julie. I was like asking the questions, but I was also listening to her story because God was stirring my heart and he was pulling me because I wanted desperately what she had, the health that she had. But I'd been so discouraged in the past and felt hopeless. I never felt like I could have the energy to do the things that I wanted to do, which, write was number one. I had lost even my passion and desire to write because I was like, that's too much work. I don't want to do the work. That's a lot of work because when you're tired, you don't want to work. So I didn't know at the time, but the story I was assigned to write wasn't really about Julie, it was about me. But God used her to get my attention. And at the time, Julie was an English teacher and a writer, and her story was so inspiring. I'd actually like her to share a little bit, a few minutes about your little story.
And I'll stand up here so you guys
Okay.
don't have to be like owls and turn around. If anybody has that ability, I would like it. You can see behind me. But, I want to share with you one of my favorite scriptures that really helped me through some of my darkest moments as I embarked on my own journey. And that was Isaiah 41:13. It says, "For I am the Lord your God who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, do not fear, I will help you." And I remember my grandmother shared that verse with me. She's since long gone, but she shared that verse with me, and I said, "But Grandma, what happens if someone's left-handed?" She's like, "Child, what are we going to do with you? This is a reference." So I do want to share with you that I am a writer also. I have a book that's been published, and I do, write articles and write for inspiration and help people. But God took my talents. I had no idea what was going to be used whenever I was little, and I was the little kid that could never read. I didn't even learn to read until I was in 6th grade. And I was told, my parents were told that I would never learn how to read. But we were situational poor. My mother was sick with cancer my whole life from the time I was 6 on. And my brain was occupied with that, going and checking on my mom and waking up and staring her and seeing if her eyes were going to open that morning. And so I did get to have her for a good 30 years while she battled that. And that was phenomenal for me. It was beautiful. She was just probably the inspiration for everything I ever achieved after she passed away. Too bad she couldn't see it whenever she was alive. But, I did. And not only did I was even denied scholarships in high school for college because they said you probably wouldn't go. And I actually ended up being one of only 2 people who went to college out of my high school class and went on not only just to get my bachelor's but to get my master's degree and doctoral hours and wrote a book. It's published, it's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble, it's Walmart. I love it. I haven't released book 2 because I just am not ready for that level of work just yet. But Gina had called me. I had gotten a reporter that said, "We'd like to do a story on you and your weight loss." I actually, after my mother passed away, my dad passed away 6 months to the day. And both of them passed away due to health issues. And when I was 28, I had doctors tell me that I wouldn't live to be 40 and said that I would, I'm sorry, those people can't see, that I wouldn't make it to live to be 40 years old. And so my triglycerides were high, my cholesterol was high, my blood pressure was high, and I had lupus just eating away my whole body. My kidneys were shutting down, my body was attacking my own heart. And I just remember, guys, I remember praying to God and I said, "Dear Lord, you would just please give me this gift of health so that I can be a beacon of light and serve other people. I will gladly do so, and I will do it however you want." And I'm not a person that I wasn't a lover of people because I had sister pass away, mom pass away, dad pass away. And it's like, Lord, what else is left? You're taking, it was like the locust was eating everything and I had no control over it. And so, I had found myself nearly 100 pounds overweight. And I remember just having some moments. It was in 2018. I had some moments and I told my husband, I said, "I'm miserable." And, I was doing great with my writing. I was, an English teacher. I was impacting 137 lives a year. My classes were full and I was miserable. And how could somebody be so miserable and be having success at other things in their life? And I was getting to a place to where I wasn't even inspired through written word. Wow, writing was my love. writing was the thing. I know what you guys get out of your writing. It's just a beautiful thing to take a story and to put it into written context and then to give it off to other people and for them to say, wow, you inspired me. You forever changed my life because of what you've written, right? And so I embarked on a health journey, and that has forever changed my life. I wouldn't normally be here on a Tuesday night, but I wanted to show up for you. Gina had done her health check-in, and I said, you know what, Gina? I said, and she didn't mention, I said, what you got going on this week? Because I always try to check in with my team. And she said, well, I'm gonna go speak to a group of writers. I was like, oh, wonderful. I said, like, you write? And she said, yes. And I said, you know what? I said, I got to thinking about your writing the other day. And when you wrote that story about me, it really wasn't about me. So God was bringing you to a story to change your life, to give you more story. And so God will bring you to it. He'll also bring you through it. But don't think for a second that he's not going to put something in your left hand that's going to make you feel a little clumsy too. So I was thinking of my grandma with that one. But you know, I started out in 2018, and I really just wanted to not die. Like, if you have never had a doctor look you in the eye and say, you're going to die, here's your expiration date based on the things that we see now, that will kind of kick you in the tail to get some things going. And so I had shared with Gina that story, and I said, you know, my goal was really just to lower my blood pressure and lower my cholesterol and lower my triglycerides so I wouldn't die. Like, I was just really looking at my gauges. And so, you know, I embarked on a health journey, and I thought if I could just lose 20 pounds, I was 230 pounds. If I could just lose 20 pounds, my cholesterol, my triglycerides, and my blood pressure would turn around. And so I did, and I did that in 2 months. And then I just continued on, and that turned into 82 pounds. But that got the attention of my friends and family, and I began writing. And one of the things that I wrote, and I remember it being a catalyst, it was 3 years ago tomorrow that I wrote this. And it was an article that I had written about this little light of mine. My grandmother was my Sunday school teacher whenever I was little. And she would sing to us, she didn't do prayer with us because we didn't have any attention span. We would be climbing the walls if she did. But we would just sing that, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. And we just would sing it, and we would blow, don't blow it out, you know, don't. And I promised my grandmother, you know, well before she passed away, I said, I'll be your little light, Grandma. I said, I will, whatever you pour into me in my life, I will let that light shine. I'm not going to put it out. Well, whenever I prayed, remember I told you I was praying to God, just give me my health. Please don't let me die. I don't want to die. I'm too young. And so I don't think anybody's ever the right age to pass away, by the way. That's my disclaimer. So I remember saying, I'm going to let that light shine. And when I did, it's kind of like God just come up in front of me. He slapped his hands in front of me, 2 lefts, 2 right, whatever he had. He slapped it, and he just opened up doors. He says, you have your health now, go serve. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And so I started helping people with their health and with their wellness. And next thing I know, here it is, tomorrow celebrates 3 years that I've been coaching other people. And we've helped over 1,000 people regain their health. And it's not everybody that comes to us for weight loss. Some people, they just want to feel better, you know, and if I'm thinking about your profession, because I have, you know, done the filibuster writes where you're writing 14 hours a day and you can't get away from the computer because you just feel so engaged in what you're doing. And you know, you just get that one more chapter, you get that one more story, you turn that one more page. I've been there, and I know what the difference is in the energy before I was healthy and afterwards, and having that mental clarity to really come up with those words and really pour that story on paper to really inspire those people. And so it just became a floodgate. And then when Gina came into my life and she says, I'm doing a story, I was like, okay, great. I remember, I was like, I'll go walk. So I had on my AirPods, and I went and I was walking I was doing healthy habits while she was interviewing me for this story. And then I had a photographer come out and do pictures. But, you know, with Gina was asking some questions. I had no idea she was asking the questions for 2 reasons. One was for her own personal self, which she's lost 30 pounds. I mean, she looks amazing. And then the other was to get another story out, to inspire other people. And so it had nothing to really do with me. God was just using me as that little light. And so that's why I'm here today, is just she's like, can you just go be my show and tell? I was like, sure. And so I said, I have no idea, what's her group? And she's like, writers. I was like, great, I'm a writer. This blends perfectly. But I just want to encourage you that the words that Gina has, I just hope that it opens up something inside of you to, be that person that stops the generational curses in your family. I've got grandparents taking hold of their family and said, you know what? I didn't do it the right way. I didn't teach proper nutrition. I didn't teach all things that I should have taught my family, and I'm seeing it in my children, and I'm beginning to see it in my grandchildren. And so they're breaking that, and they're bringing their family on board with it. But I'm proud to report that my doctors have said I have reversed everything. My rheumatologist divorced me and said, you don't need me anymore. And I cried because I said, we've been in a relationship for 20 years. And he's like, you don't need me. And I will tell you, weather like this, up and down, would normally have my rheumatoid arthritis just all in a bunch. And it does not. My blood numbers, I'll call my blood numbers, are in the perfect range. And God answered my prayer. So I'm going to continue serving him. I hope tonight I've served you in a way. I may interject with her because I get so excited about her story. But I just wanted to share, health and hope, and just know that whatever, I don't know anybody's story here, but if there is something, all of that can be turned around. It can be changed. Sometimes we feed other people's souls with what our words are, right? Don't you feel like sometimes you're putting the manna out there, you're feeding people's souls with what you write, but we're not feeding our own. We're not taking care of ourselves, and we're being good stewards of what we have and what we have. So that's just my little words of encouragement. I'm also a school teacher, so I could go an hour, but I won't do that to you. I won't do that to anybody.